welcome to Bear Talk. Most designers spend their careers shipping other people's products. Today's guest decided to build one of his own out of a newsletter. Xinran Ma, trained as an artist, became a product designer at Redfin and then walked away from a stable remote job the year his side project finally out-earned it. That side project, designed with AI, now reaches more than 40,000 designers alongside a top-rated Maven course and 3 best-selling books. What makes this conversation worth your time is that Xinran has actually done the thinking many of us only talk about, turning a point of view into a living. Xinran, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's so great to talk to you. First time speaking to you in person.
Yeah, that's awesome because we've connected a while ago, like on LinkedIn and also on Twitter, and also I read many of your updates and also interacted with each other. But this is the first time we actually can talk in person. And also congratulations on your new move. Could you share a little bit on that, with the people or with us?
Sure. I feel like move maybe a bigger word than it deserves. It's basically a longer version of a vacation, I would say. It's not really a vacation in the sense that I still have to work, especially for the first half of it. It's basically, yes, for those of you who don't know, I'm leaving tomorrow to South America for a few months, just to spend the summer over there.
Yeah, wow, that's actually, I mentioned that I'm so jealous because that's the dream life I want to live, and I like living somewhere. I like move somewhere to live for a couple of months or maybe even a couple of weeks. Could be good, and then experience something different. So this is something that I want to talk to you around this gap. Like a couple of months ago when we first connected, I noticed that you just started your business and just started your project and stepped from your previous job and starting something new. But now you are moving out of the country for a couple of months. Like this gap, could you share a little bit like how things started and how things end? Maybe let's get back to the original beginning, like when you first started as an architect and then transition from that job to from that career path to design. What happened like during that phase?
Sure. Yeah. So it's been a while ago. I tried to refresh my memory. I studied architecture in college. So I remember before college, when I graduated from high school, my dad was like, you're good at many things, but you're not great at anything particular. And architecture felt like a pretty good major for you. And then he also told me that it had a lot of potential. There's high demand for architects. So as with many people, I studied architecture in college and then following the typical path, coming to the US for grad school. And after graduation, I worked as an architect in an architecture firm for a few years. And it was not the lifestyle that I liked, but it's not really about lifestyle. It's more about, following the path. That is, I was talking about lifestyle because it was a quite demanding industry for people who are familiar with it. I really enjoyed architecture as a major in college at school. It's such a rewarding experience, but it could be a little bit different working in professional fields as an architect. There's a lot of reality that I had to face. Regardless, I was still on the path to get my license as an architect, and I finished, I think, 6 out of 7 exams. But then after my wife was pregnant, I realized that I wanted to make a change. And speaking of that, it happened over time. It's like a little fuel in my mind that had grown over time. And I remember there was one night that I finally made the decision that I wanted to transition out of architecture. Part of the reason was there were some of the friends that I knew had managed to make the transition. So at one point, I decided to make the move. I thought there is a natural extension between product design or UX and architecture. And I also like, certain aspects of UX that is more, there's more opportunities to get closer to the users. There is a lot of opportunities that you get to stand at the forefront of technology and apply them into day-to-day work. There's
Mm,
also a fast iteration
mm,
cycle. It's a fun story that one of my old boss at the architecture firm texted me a couple months ago, showing a photo of a building that I was designing
mm.
7 years ago. So it's currently under construction right now. So as you can see, it's a pretty long
Yeah,
timeline,
yeah.
and I enjoyed the fast, rapid iteration of product design. Another thing that I made made the decision for me was that I thought if I didn't make the transition successfully into product design, it was pretty easy. It could be pretty easy for me to transition back to architecture. The skill sets, the experience still applied,
Yeah.
but
Mm,
it didn't work the reversely. If I
mm,
didn't jump on the bus or the train fast enough,
mm.
in 5 years, it's impossible for me to catch up. So with different factors, different reasons, embracing a newborn, I made the transition. So that's that. I hope
Yeah,
that's right.
that's actually quite interesting because one, I did some mentorship with some design student, and one of the students actually she also made the same transition from architecture to product design. And one thing she's frustrated or like she's quite overwhelmed with all the new things need to learn and also like the fast pace of product design industry because compared to architecture, it's architecture quite like a you need to follow the specific steps and also like normally it takes longer time to validate things and then start to build because you can't make mistakes if it's a building is on the construction like everything should be finalized and validated. Yeah. So my question is that looking back for you, Xing, like what did architecture teach you that still shows up in how you build maybe your current product, the design with AI today? So are there any connections? Well, yeah, revolutions.
100%. Yeah, that's a great perspective. Although I didn't think about that as much. I often thought about the correlation between product design and architecture. There's a lot of similarities. It helped me better prepare as a product designer, but I didn't think much about how it correlates with the business that I'm running. I think first of all, it's probably not the best angle. I'm more used to long hours of sitting in front of computer
Mm,
producing stuff.
mm, yeah,
So I don't know if that's a correlation or not, but writing also consumes a lot of energy. It's like running marathon in some
mm,
ways
yeah,
because you have to like think about what to write and craft the newsletter and break down the language in a way that other people who don't have enough experience or knowledge in that domain can also understand. So there's a lot of like back and forth crafting things that I felt some similarities when I was working in architecture, right? There's a lot of like attention to detail, the craft of doing something, and that craftsmanship
yeah. Mm,
applies in other areas as well. And I like you draw. I saw like your drawings are amazing. There must be something that correlate between like your drawing and the way you do podcasts or the way you
yeah.
write things.
Yeah, yeah. I got what you mean. It's more like those. It's not like on the surface these things are connected, but actually there is something fundamental below, in a deeper level that can you can like still get benefited from that those habits or experience before. So yeah.
Yeah, I can also use another angle to frame this, like architecture, whether you use digital tool or physical tool, essentially is a matter of time that you get to craft an experience that you and your team are proud of. And it can be a little bit personal in some ways because you're trying to create an experience that resonates with people. So for many architects I know that they are ideal, sort of ideal dream in some ways that they hope the space that they create, the space that they crafts can make a positive impact on the world. That's why people spend so much time. They don't think they are tired. There's a very uh, important mission that drive them to put in the work to craft this experience. So similarly, when I'm writing things or when I'm doing courses, there's some similarity in the sense that I wanted to feel proud of my work and I wanted to put into like the iterations
Mm,
to get it to the point that I feel good about and I think could be something valuable for other people as well. And I think that
mm.
mindset still translates between one and the other.
Yeah. I just thought of something because one of my students also she's transferred from hospitality to design, and she's quite successful at the moment. She's thriving in design career path now. And a few years ago, when at that time I find she's really good. She was really good at working long hours because working as a hostess in a restaurant like 8 hours is not a problem. So which makes that she's really resilient on doing the design craft and can always push to the higher level of his craft quality. And I think it's like at first it feels, oh, there's nothing connected from that role to the new role, but actually there is. So that's something I just think of really interesting. So one thing that you mentioned that you also writing and also teaching and design. I wonder if you meet some people for the first time, how do you describe what you actually do now? Doing it sit somewhere between writing, teaching, and design. Like what how did you describe like what you do? And because someone asked me the same question, I need to find this is quite interesting. But I want to hear it from you.
Yeah, sure. So Bear, I was on another podcast a few weeks ago and I got asked the same question. The very first question is to introduce yourself. And I had a hard time because I didn't really prepare for it. And I was like, the version that I said is, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a designer, I'm an instructor, I'm an author, I'm a dad in a very clunky way because that was my first time trying to describe that. Because before that, I can always say, my employer's name, my title, and I can say I teach courses on the side. That's it. Simple as that. But that was the first time that I got asked this question. I was like, I really tried to put together how to introduce myself. So that's why about 5 minutes before this call, I had to think about if I got asked the same question again, I didn't want it to spend a lot of time to put things together. So the version now I thought in my mind right before this call was that I'm a designer and entrepreneur helping people design better with AI, with courses, newsletters, workshops.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
that sounds like a smooth flow. However, deep down, if I were to give another version, which I don't care about those professional setting, I was just trying to say that, I'm a person trying to make sense of the world.
Mhm.
There are a lot of things that I do, I consider them as self-discovery,
Mm, yeah, some curious person. I like that.
sort
Yeah,
of.
cool. Xian, you shared your first big jump, like a big leap, like leap of faith from architect to a designer. And could you share your second one? Because that what I mean is when you decided to leave or to move on your previous job, and it was a quite stable job as I understand, and good salary, good everything's like a good company, everything's good. And why did you decided to move on, and how did you do that? Like, could you tell us a little bit more on that?
Sure, sure. No matter it's online or offline, in what kind of setting, I always say that I'm grateful for my, previous employer in the sense that, it's a great team and it's a comfortable environment for me. And also I feel challenged. It's not just pure comfort, but also I feel challenged in a good way. And it's fully remote job. And I worked there for 4 years. I'm familiar with the team. So I'm always grateful for that. At the same time, for that particular decision, it didn't happen all of a sudden. I
Hmm.
sort of had this mindset, but it just okay. So I can give you the full version.
Awesome.
That happened last July. 2025. They had a meeting with Maven CEO that
Hmm.
day. It was on another topic, and their head of marketing. It was totally on another topic. And I think at the end of towards the end of the call, I was saying like they mentioned that I had pretty good data showing the conversion rate, and I was like I didn't want it to market the course as much, and I was very self conscious of marketing it. And the responses that I got was I sensed that as I spoke this out, saying I still work at a job. I didn't want it to market myself too much. As I spoke that out, I feel like there's something odd, like right after the call, in a sense that I think I already had an answer in my mind.
Mm,
It's just that I always use that I'm still working in a full time job as an excuse in some ways.
mm, yeah.
So even though that call particularly was nothing about should I left my full time job to do this full time or not, but it's just that it happened to trigger part of me now feel like you know it didn't. It's the time. I think
Mm,
that's all I wanted to say. And another thing is a couple of weekend before that meeting. That was I think it was a Saturday or Sunday. I was sort of working at my desk, and my wife came in showing a financial app, showing me that my side hustle income actually exceeded my full time income
mm,
for I think for 2 months or for 1 month, something like that. You can see the graph,
yeah.
and that was a such a big moment for me because I didn't realize that because I was
Mm,
deep in the weeds. I didn't realize that happened. But again, I think it cannot be translated directly. After that, I learned it. It's not like apple to apple because you have to consider all the things that your employer offer to you, right? They
hmm.
pay the medical insurance for you, things of that nature. But anyway, that was a moment happened about a weekend ago,
Mm,
and that Monday that thing happened, and that night I had this thought of quitting my job, and I debated for a long time, I think about an hour. And I mentioned that online as well because it's such a big moment for me. So I think I made the decision at 9:50
mm.
ish at night
You remember exact the time?
because
That's amazing.
it's such a struggle. It didn't make a lot of sense for me to quit at that moment because I was already about to go on vacation at that time. There's not a lot of rationale to make that happen anyway. But I made the decision of submitting my 2 week notice the day after. So what happened is the day after that night, I submit notice, and then 2 weeks after, that was my last day at that company.
Well, I've learned a lot since this what you shared earlier. Because first is that this is something that triggers you from that call, but it's not about that call. It's more around the feeling, or you notice that deep down inside your heart, you cannot. Maybe just my assumption, you couldn't commit on both sides. So you realize at the moment I need to make that decision, this or that. It's not like one way. It's not like I can have both. In ideal world, it could be something. And also, I think for many of us, still working on a permanent role and doing some side hustle, this is everyone's thinking. Can I do it both? I can keep safe on my current role, and I can get some pocket money, or like get some extra money, or like build something alongside with that. That's great. But at the moment they decided, it seems that I need to commit to that side rather than this side. That's that seems subtle, but it's actually quite huge for everyone's life because this is a life decision, right? So yeah.
Such a big decision to the point that that's why I thought about this for a long time.
Hmm.
Well, I thought about that moment for a very long time, but I just didn't expect that happened on that day, because I could have waited for at least, let's say, at least a few months or a quarter or half a year. Maybe that would still happen eventually, but it was not necessarily at that point. But I think because of like the reassurance a few weeks ago that I knew that I could potentially pull it off. And because of the Monday trigger that as I say, I didn't want to market myself while I had already had a great growth curve in
Hmm.
my side hustle. And just because of I had the fear of I was like had a lot of self doubt and self debate,
Yeah.
and I
Mm.
tried to use that as an excuse. But for that day particularly, maybe because I was also tired that day, I feel like I'm very conscious of my age, in the sense that I felt like if I wanted to start my business eventually, that time it was good time. So like I should take action. I didn't have any luxury to wait anymore.
Mm. Yeah. So you started Maven course a little bit earlier than that, and then this side project seems overpass. But I also noticed that because you run a newsletter and a Maven course and books, right? You write so 3 books if I remember correctly. So yeah, there are lots of things. Is that all planned, or did you do it along the journey that during this stage, I need to, maybe my focus is writing book and other stages teaching course. If you do it again, like if you do this, like rebuild from zero today, so which would you start first, or would you drop something? Because I know that not many of for me, it's really struggling to manage multiple projects or
Mm.
multiple stuffs. And how how did you manage that? Or is that according to your plan, or just improv, like it happens during the time?
Yeah, I had a very rough plan, like a vague plan.
Hmm.
And I wanted to have my own business about 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. So that planted a seed in my mind. And I didn't do multitasking all the time. Like for the books, I only focused on one book at a time,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
then moved to the second book, and then moved to the third book, and then started my newsletter. And then 6 months, about 5 months after I started my newsletter, I started the course. And it's
Mm.
only over the past 2 years that I've been multitasking on both course and newsletter, which was a lot, as you can imagine. But prior to that, for the books, I was quite focused.
Mm.
And regarding if I were to do this again, would I adopt the same approach? I would say more or less. The only
Mm.
thing that I would do differently is for sure I would uh, I would start early.
Mm.
I All the things I described to you happened after I turned 30. So in my 30s, I would say. Yeah, I think start early is something that I definitely would do differently. Regarding like books, newsletter, courses, I'm relatively content with what I've done in terms of the sequence.
Mm. Yeah, because I noticed that for books, if you created those things, and it will be an evergreen content, there are assets actually. There will be evergreen assets alongside, and also after that, you can use the learnings from writing books to contribute to your newsletter, and then newsletter can support the course, if I'm understanding correctly. So it's more like everything can connected together, but it's not like all at once, right? So it's more like each step have some focus point, or like a priority for each step.
Yeah, this sounds great as a master plan, but at the moment when I was writing books, I didn't think of courses and newsletter at all. I might do it at one time because of the influence. I know you are on X as well, or Twitter back in the days. There are a lot of iterations over there, people doing all kinds of stuff. So I was very influenced at that time. Or in other words, I was very inspired by many people on Twitter.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
I even studied how they write copy.
Yeah, same.
It's same like the email sequence, fascinating. I take snapshots. I learn a lot of stuff, but I never generate anything. But the books was a moment that I feel like, I need to do something, and I will start with the book just because of I saw some inspiration at that point.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to mention is that I read a lot of book at that time.
Mm.
So if you read a lot of book, let's say if you listen to a lot of music, then you wanted to produce some music as well. And
Mm.
I was very influenced or inspired by many books. That was 7 years ago. So that I think that planted the seed that I wanted to write a book too.
Is there any like professional? Sorry, you want to like make it perfect for writing books, or like you just feel, oh, I just want to write something, like because I consume so many content. Because one of major fear that many people have is that what if it's not good? What if it's somebody will won't read it? Like, do you have that? Did you have that anxiety or like a fear or anxious about those things?
I think all I remember, because that was a long time ago for my first book.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
first book was really, really, oh my, I don't know how to describe it, because back then, not a lot of people use ChatGPT, and I didn't use ChatGPT either. And English is not my mother tongue.
Hmm.
And I was super self-conscious of being judged. If the sentence makes sense, if what I write is clear enough or not. I was super conscious to the point that I have to use Google to make sure the sentence, the phrase makes sense for every single sentence of it. Now that I have AI, at least I can use AI as a grammar checker.
Hmm. Yeah.
But at that point, I was like handcrafted everything. It was crazy amount of effort put in my
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. But I really in Spiral, like one thing I can resonate is that just because during that time you mentioned you read a lot of books, so lots of input, like you consume so many good stuff, and process it, and then want to create something. Like the input and output is like two things equally, and sometimes we got struggle just because there are lots of inputs, but there's no output, and it feels it's not a loop, not a flow to work on that. And sometimes if you don't have input, just try to create something, and it's also like, yeah, now because of AI, many people can create some AI slop, but they don't have the right or a high quality input by themselves. It's like you need to consume it as a human, like even manually. I think the harder you take, the harder effort you put on consuming those stuff, the better output you will get on the other end. But this is something I think I quite resonate what you just shared on that. Yeah, cool. Let's talk about the newsletters, because I noticed that your newsletter grows super fast. Like, because I remember earlier this year, or like, yeah, probably earlier this year, I checked your newsletter, like on Substack, it's like 220,000 or something like subscribers. And now it's over 40,000, 43 or 44, like already a huge, like growth from even just in roughly half a year. So yeah, what what did you do? Like, what single decision did you did, if you want to like reflect or like review what you've done right? Are there anything that you feel, "Oh, that's definitely the right thing I've done," or just accidentally? I don't believe it. So yeah, what do you think?
To me, the most important moment was not didn't happen this year. It was last. I wrote about it that it was happened last January, February, and March. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the real pivotal point to
Mm,
me.
yeah.
If you think of a percentage growth, you know, velocity point of view, that was the real tipping point. And the reason I think, so for that moment, like which is a year ago, well, a year and 3 or 4 months ago, the reason I contributed to my some of my articles randomly took off, and I think that was the reason I didn't do anything particular at that time. I know it sounds like odd to say that, but I didn't do anything particular at that time. I was just putting into the reps, and whenever you have enough quantity, like enough newsletters that are out there, and maybe there were some, I don't know. It's very hard to predict. Bear.
Mm,
So some of the articles I spent so much time writing it, it was not the high engaging ones, and a couple of my best performing, so to speak,
mhm,
articles. Actually, I wrote it on a couch, over a night or something. I didn't expect that to happen. So you never knew. Regarding this year, things changed slightly in the sense that I was more conscious of building my newsletter, because the difference is that last year, most of the time, I still worked at a full-time job. So for the newsletter, it's like a bonus thing for me. I just wanted to write And I don't care if it is grow slow or fast, but it happened to be very fast a year ago, which is great. But this year, I think I became a little bit more intentional in terms
Hmm.
of, I wanted to grow, but not in a panic way, but in a way that I also in a zen way, if that's the
Mm.
right way to put it. But I'm intentional for the growth, but also intentional for a more sustainable growth.
Mm.
And regarding what I did, I had two. You know that I have two seasons of talks,
Hmm.
and I
Yeah.
invited many guest speakers, and those talks got a lot of attraction,
Mm.
and that
Mm.
that might
Yep.
be one of the main reasons.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking like for any topics or any tips around AI, like in 2023 or 2024, like newsletters or news or articles about AI always got high traffic and always got a high performance. And also, I think this is just because many people like now in professional world, like in design industry, at first, designers will always we don't use AI. Like everything's meant like human craft. But now it's like okay, we need to use it. It's not like to replace us, but it need to speed up or like release us for doing some tedious work, and so that we can focus on something higher quality. So there's a need, there's a market need for that. Do you feel, because you mentioned sustainable? Do you think is this a window, or is there a window you feel? Because you mentioned the newsletter growth is just doing reps, which I think is the fundamental stuff. Like if you want to do something, it's not happen all at once. You need to continue doing that. But do you feel it's just because this is an AI window we are in, and if that's so, it's a window, and what will come? Like how long it's gonna come after that? So yeah, it's a more around taking the growth, but how to make it sustainable. I don't know if I
Yeah,
describe
yeah,
my question
yeah,
clear. It's more like
yeah. Of
some
course, yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. I think my dad asked me that question at one point, like asking like, yes, you're teaching AI, but is this sustainable in a way that, nobody can predict what would happen in a few years, not to mention that the AI space domain gets more and more crowded. Is this something, okay, maybe you're doing okay at this point, but what about in a few years? And I think what I told him is that like, first of all, I think the core factor of sustainable is that you need to feel fulfilled or energized writing the stuff you want to write. So if you really enjoy something, let's say I play guitar, if I really enjoy playing guitar, then it's sustainable because I really like music, right? It's something that is not about my audience per se, but it's about myself. So a lot of newsletters I write, yes, they're touching upon a trendy topic, but at the core is that I'm trying to learn myself as well. So it's my self-learning journey. And that journey does not really have to tie with AI per se, but it's more about following my curiosity. For example, there are things that I don't understand well. So I just wanted to figure that out and writing about it. And I happen to share what I write about it to other people. So in that way, it's a self-initiated practice that I think it can be sustainable in that way. So it's not really about how much I love AI.
Hmm.
And it's not even about how much I love design, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I know there are some designers who are really, really into design. Like I know you like to do sketches. I don't do sketches as much. I used to do a lot of sketches, but not nowadays. But I found myself really interested in doing business.
Mm.
So the practice of writing newsletter in some way is like I'm shipping mini products, right? I need to know how to write a way that can help people understand, how to write a way that people can resonate or find value out of it. And I see this as a very interesting entrepreneurial practice as opposed to just about design and AI. So for example, beer. I also share my thoughts and journey in a relatively transparent way. I don't know how much you use other like Substack notes, for example. The way I share it is that I hope there are some like-minded people who read my newsletter not just because of design and AI, but also because that they are curious to learn something. They wanted to step out of their comfort zone, and I hope someone may be inspired or intrigued by it in some ways. Every article that I write is more like a dialogue, speaking to people somewhere around the world. This kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but I see it as an entrepreneurial practice
Mm,
um, that I think I found it interesting. Regarding the topic, maybe one day AI and design, like no one talk about it anymore, but it's okay. I can always shift
mm,
topics because I'm following my curiosity. I can talk
yeah.
about entrepreneurship.
I like
So
that.
yeah.
Did you receive some responses by sharing those non-design related thoughts or notes? Like, are there like-minded people connected or replied you or response you?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't make it explicit. This
Yeah.
something that I fun fact. I was thinking of writing some books, or not books, or just writing some notes. So on this trip, before this, because I'm going on a trip, I actually bought three something like this.
Yeah. The
I'm
book.
trying to do some journal. Like I know you do that, and
Yeah.
I wanted to document that journey. I have been documenting the journey somewhat on Substack notes, little by little, almost every day. So I've written about over about 1,500 notes. It's like X posts or
Mm,
tweets
yeah.
within 2 years. So I've been constantly writing about things. And I forgot your question.
Never mind. That's the spirit of this topic. That's of this podcast. That's all. We're talking about something sustainable, sustainability. But the reason I'm asking that, like, how do you feel it should be sustainable, or like about the topic? Because I've been asked about this question a lot as well. Like people, for example, my ex colleagues, they because I left my job, I resigned as well, and they sometimes ask, "Oh, what do you do right now?" I'm saying, "Okay, I'm supporting some clients. I'm doing design consultant for those clients, works quite well." And sometimes they just, "Oh, is that sustainable?" And at first I just explain it, like how the model works. And then now I realize that everything has a lifespan. Everything has a time. Nothing's permanent, right? So a job is not permanent. A company is not permanent. A client is not permanent. And what you go is just during this period of time, work your best way and alongside it and contribute, or like do fun stuff together, create something great. And when time comes, just move on to something else, because that's how lives work. And for you, for your experience, like architect, designer, and like writer, so it's not like we stick to one job or one status forever. It's always like this. And even like for life, like this period you are a son, that period you are a father, so another period you are a husband. So they're always priority shifting. So something fundamental about our journey, that those are the important things, and those are the sustainable stuff, like relationship, or like what you mentioned, curiosity. So those are the things actually fundamental. But about design, about job, about trending, about what is trending now, nothing stay forever. Like
Mm.
this AI trending could be end like in couple of years, who knows, or couple of months, who knows. And for example, UX design used to be a buzzword. I still remember those days, like a few years ago. Everyone talks about UX, and now everyone talks about design is dead. Like it's become the trending topic. So yeah, that's my personal reflection. It's like, yeah, if we just focus on something really important for us, and you're happy about doing that, and also it can provide the energy or the money or things to provide your family, that's all good. It's sustainable. So yeah, sometimes it's become an excuse for people to move on or to step out. Like I need to find a sustainable way. But actually, yeah, it will be really late if you always want to find something sustainable and before you move. So yeah, sorry, lots of personal nagging, like rambling about
It's
this topic.
it's very great framing, like very great framing. If I were to put in words, sustainable, staying true to yourself is probably sustainable. Because we have to face ourselves. If we, I can't imagine someone who is always lie to themselves, right? So if you're genuine to yourself, then maybe that's something sustainable. And regarding the external things, things change, right?
Mm, yeah, cool. Let's get back to real life. If someone's listening, like, oh, what these guys are talking about, and let's provide some maybe practical tips for the audiences. Like, for example, if someone doing design with some similar background as us, like maybe work in agency or in corps, and find now the environment or like the industry is quite is changing and lots of like competitions or like things need to consider and would like to make the same move like you. I think, for example, they want to start their business. Are there anything you will suggest? Like this is something you might need to take a look, or there are some pitfalls you might meet. And yeah, so are there any tips or suggestions you want to share to those people? Yeah.
Yeah, like the first tip is that it came across my mind when you just said the question for some reason. The tagline is start small, start early, start hungry in some way.
Mm, yeah.
So which means that you can start small as a small bets, like small experiment. So it has lower stake.
Mhm.
Start early is that, try to start early. Otherwise you will never do something like this, or you may miss the best time or whatever. So start early, which also refers to, take action. The last thing is stay hungry, in a way that you really have the desire for something, for a better life, for your dream, whatever that dream is, and hold on to that desire or the motivation, because that can help you go through the difficult times, the self-doubt times, the nights when you doubt yourself. I think that is also important.
Mhm.
That's the first thing that came across my mind directly. The second thing is that my mindset got changed a lot after quitting my full-time job, because now that I've experienced both sides, maybe of at one point of my career that I really dreamed of quitting corporate to become a entrepreneur or even solopreneur. But after I quit full-time job, I realized that, like, first of all, this is not for everyone. Everyone has different situation. Like, honestly, to be able to quit a job in a high expense area is a privilege. It's a privilege. It's not like I would never take this for granted. Like, oh, I've done this. You all should all do this. It's so great. I should never do that, because, like, everything that I've built today, I realize that it's a accumulation of privilege in some
Mm,
ways. Whether it's, my parents who care about education. There are a lot of people who cannot achieve the things that I've achieved, and not just because of myself, but because of many factors. So I do wanted to share that. For example, let's say another person who's based in a high expense region, right? Maybe they have to feed their family. Maybe they have older parents to care for.
mm,
The full-time job, a full-time corporate job, it's a stable place, and then they need that stableness and security. So there's nothing wrong about it.
yep.
As a matter of fact, the moment that you jumped into the solopreneurship route, it's not as stable as the corporate job. There's a lot of turbulence, and not everyone can afford that. It requires a lot of, how to say, like, emotional stableness to be able to pull that off. So that's my
Mm,
my biggest learning. It's not grass is greener on the other side. There's pros and cons about both. So the third thing is that I try to, again, place more bets. Do more
mm,
experiments in a way that you feel motivated. So let's
mhm,
say if you feel more motivated writing things on X, go for it. You don't have to pick whatever others are picking. Like I know there are a lot of people are doing YouTube. You don't have to YouTube. You can start with the thing, the format that you feel comfortable with. But the whole point is to build your personal brand in some way so that your self-worth is not tied to one place.
Yeah.
So that is like building a safety net. And
Right.
again, you build that safety net, not quitting your job, but you build the safety net to for your own personal growth. Because the moment that you try to build something outside of the corporate environment, you may realize that it's a different risk level because in a corporate, there's already a system laid out, right? You can, how to say, the responsibility is not fully on you. But if you were
Yeah.
to work on something you have to face like real clients, right? You take all the ownership, you own everything. Then it's a better, like how to say, it's a rapid growth environment because you have to face your own self. So that's something I suggested. Try to play some bets outside of your corporate comfort zone, and you don't have to quit your job. You don't have to think about quitting your job, but you can do both for your own sake of growth.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think, yeah, I agree on all of those. I just want to add one thing. Maybe it's also because I noticed someone also trying to do that and they want to build like a solid business while they're working on their job. And the plan is so big that it's not only overwhelming, but they cannot receive any feedback because it's a a long process. I would suggest to make the feedback loop as short as possible in the very beginning. Like maybe at first you want to write a book like yourself. Maybe someone I want to write a book about what I learned during this journey, and start by write a apps post first, or start by writing a newsletter first, and share with your friends and receive some feedback. Like even just a few comments will make you feel this seems good, and you will receive some signal and you can continue. And if you want to build a solid business, it's also the same. And because many people might not able to hold to the final step, they might just give up because the progress is so long and they forgot, or like they just give up because it seems it's just useless. They're doing this work without receiving any responses or feedback. So
Mm.
yeah, this is only one thing I will add. But yeah, I noticed we already talked so long, and it's in your evening and last day before your trip, so I don't want to take too much of your time, Xinran. So maybe one last two questions. Like first, like how to, or like if you have any final suggestions or tips to share with the audiences. Like one about to get better at this. Sorry, let me reframe my question. So yeah, if you want to share some tips or suggestions for the people who's listening and want to make the move, you already mentioned those three things. Are there any typical like practical steps or tips that you want to share? For example, some reading resources or some resources, or like anything that you feel that might be relevant to those people. The audiences are more around those people who work in tech companies, or some people in their early stage want to grow their career or business. So yeah, any practical tips you want to share with them as well?
I think the practical tip is to spend some time away from your computer, away from your phone, and just to maybe take out a notebook or something, just to draw down your thoughts regarding who you want to be. What is the life that you wanted to have in 10 years. If you have a kid, imagine the time when your kid grows up, or, maybe let's say if you were 30 years old, what would happen when you were at 40 years old? Are you doing the things that you enjoy doing every day? If not, then what would be the vision that you want to have? So basically jotting down those things and then think about the things that you enjoy doing, the things that you feel like draining a lot of your energy, and the things that you think that can bring value for people. It's basically trying to figure out some of your North Star, your the North Star, and the things that motivates you, the things that have some value to the market, right? Then draw down a lot of ideas that you may have, what you can do, things that you can make. So have a rough plan of that. I think that clarity helps. The premise is away from computer. So usually if you were to sit under a tree on a grassland for 2 days, you can gain a lot of clarity on different things. Because if we're just to work every day, it's like on a treadmill, working on the same thing. It's very hard for us to pull back and to think about to look at our current situation. So I think that helps. And then it's a matter of putting into small experiments in a way, because like you mentioned, small experiments can get feedback, right? And that is also helpful for, I think, positive feedback is important at the beginning of any journey.
Yeah.
So if I were to play guitar, there's everyone says I play so bad. I don't think I would continue playing it. And I think for my newsletter, it's just because of at one point, because I put into small reps, and this one point it took off at one point. So I realized I was more motivated in that regard. So I think, again, based on what you said, get some clarity about yourself, about the life that you wanted to pursue for, and then think about how to get there with a lot of brainstorming or brain dump of what you can do. If you cannot do that, sure, talk with people, right? Find some ideas. Like, it's funny because once you have a North Star, once you have this desire, in my opinion, a lot of action becomes easier. Like when I was writing a book, I really try to imagine the excitement that I would have if my first book is published. I think it's something really valuable. It documented my own ups and downs transitioning my journey into a product design. And I believe that would be valuable for other people as well. To the point that I even finished, I designed, because I'm a designer. So I designed the cover long before I finished the draft.
Yeah. So typical. Love it.
Like manifest. And right after the first book is published, I finished the design of the cover of my second and third book. So right after my first book was published, and I already finished all the book covers of the second and third one, because I can see that happen, and that was part of my motivation. Yeah, it's a little bit odd, but I'm not very disciplined as a person, but I believe that kind of desire played a role in my actual execution.
Yeah. That's awesome. And one last question is, what is the best way for people to find you or to reach out to you? Because I noticed you have LinkedIn, Substack, newsletter, and author, and X post. So yeah, which are the best ways to reach out to you?
I would say LinkedIn and newsletter. So my LinkedIn is my name with a person who looks younger than me. So that's my LinkedIn.
The same as me. Like I used my photo for 10 years ago.
Yeah. And my newsletter is Design with AI.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Xinran. It's an awesome chat. And for people who's listening, I will share those contact information on the show notes. And again, Xinran, thanks for your time and congrats on your upcoming journey, like upcoming family trip or like lifestyle changing for a couple of months. And hopefully, like after when you come back, we can talk more, like share a little bit of this trip and how you balance work and life during this. Cool. Thanks again. And thanks to people who's listening. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.
Thank you for having me.